Hi everyone. So this is lesson 2 of week 2. So the week, the 18th to the 22nd. So our second class on the Wednesday. And I see that a lot of you have at least watched the first class, and I saw one or two of you have already uploaded the keynote that I asked you to upload about processed foods. So highly interesting topic, how we keep foods, processed foods, and how we keep foods preserved, and the kind of the health things that could come along with preservatives, and why we try to buy foods that don't have preservatives, that are not preservatives, and we like words like organic, fresh, free range, nothing added, all this kind of stuff. But there's also reasons why we do use those foods. So it's great to see the keynotes, and you've all looked into the ham and the milk and so on and so forth, and the canned tuna, because it is one of those things you realise, why is it best before this a few days, or best before 2 years, and why you can eat stuff after a long time. It's not breaking down. Why isn't it breaking down? More to the point, and we'll always have to get back to it at all times, is what can they ask us in the junior cert in 2 years about this? Well, they can ask us for factors that impact our health. So how you keep healthy, things you do that could impact your health. And what we're going to look at today, and we're going to give this one more day because I want to make sure that we get it. And one thing I haven't really touched on yet is the things you can't control. So things that are in your genes, in your chromosomes, things that are passed on from mum and dad, that are in every single cell of your body, that could impact your health. Okay, so we'll go back to the OneNote for a second. We're going to have to go between two groups here, so I can show you what we're going to be working on. So the last day, and we looked at food preservation techniques and different ways to do it, and we spoke about preservatives, no added preservatives, and we looked at the difference between normal ham that you cook in a pot at home, and then this pre-packaged stuff, which is phenomenally popular. And you may have watched the video on the food preservation, so different ways that'll help you with your keynote. And you may have watched this horrible one about the McDonald's burgers, the McDonald's chips, and the awful things that happen to them over time. For some reason, doesn't happen to the chips, which is, I suppose, very interesting due to some sort of preservative. You might have got curious and Googled that and figured what preservative is in those chips that stops them from rotting. There must be something in there. This is the only task due for Friday. This is the only task that I need you to upload. This is the keynote on the bacteria, fungi, and viruses, and what preservatives are used in the chin tuna, the processed ham, the milk, and the crisps, and how humans have preserved food throughout history. So why are we using these new preservatives? Why not stick to the old ways that people did it? So that is to be uploaded by the end of the week, and it's the only thing that I need uploaded this week. Okay, I saw 2 or 3 have it done already, which is fabulous, but other people are taking a bit more time, which is totally okay. So take your time, watch the videos, and finish that off. So we're going to go back out of here and go back to a folder that we were using before Christmas. So if I go back out of here and I look at my content library, and up slightly higher, I have one here on human health. So I'm going to tap human health, and I'm going to go in here, and I've put a new folder in here. Now it's the same learning outcome. You'll see there that we're still focusing on exactly the same one as we were in the other folder. So we're still interested in how human health is affected. But we're going to focus in this part on this one here, on inherited factors. That's the other part. You'll agree that we've already done environmental factors. We've looked at your food you eat. We've looked at your lifestyle choices that you can make. You've made a pic collage on that. And we've also looked at the role of microorganisms, and you made a list of all the way viruses, fungi, and bacteria can impact human health. So we're up here now. We're going to focus on this one here for about 10-15 minutes. And I have a few questions down the bottom that you can work on for the rest of the lesson. Okay? I've also added in a small bit more about diet, just a bit in particular, different things in that you might eat in certain foods that and what they do. Okay? So We're going to look at this one here. So if we think of every single cell has a nucleus, and in every you drew them all back in September, and inside those nucleus you have 46 chromosomes. So if you think, well, okay, here's my human cell. Remember the fried egg diagram of the animal cell? Well, in every nucleus, so in every single nucleus, if I go out here, you have 46 chromosomes. You get 23 from dad, you get 23 from mum, and that makes up the 46 here inside your nucleus. And they're made up of two things. They're made up of DNA, we've heard that word before, and they're made up of protein. And that's very important, that 46. So this 46 number is extremely important. It has to be exactly 23 and 23. So you're exactly 50% your man, 50% your dad. Even though you might have got the stronger chromosomes for facial shape from your mom, you might have got the stronger chromosomes for height from your dad. So you might look like your mom would be as tall as your dad. But you still are 50-50 man, 50-50 mom, 50-50 dad. Okay? So any messing with this, any change in that is called a mutation. So if we have an extra bit of a chromosome or one less or half one missing, that's a problem. And mutations stop the organism from developing and functioning properly. And there's loads of different things that can cause that. Stuff we ingest, stuff we breathe, coming into contact with radiation from the sun. And if that happens, that mutation is passed on. So it's passed on to the next person. So if you have a mutation in your DNA, you could pass that on to your sons and daughters later on. And we call that inherited. So you inherit diseases. Some diseases are passed on from grandparents to parents and from parents to children. One example, a good example, is Down syndrome. So Down syndrome, there's nothing you can do. No amount of carrots is going to stop you from having Down syndrome. No amount of eating in loads and loads of dairy and loads of meat and broccoli and stuff like that, because it is a genetic disorder. And it's caused by a third copy of one of the chromosomes. So chromosome 21, you have an extra copy of it. And if you're to kind of characterize Down syndrome, you have slow growth, the characteristic facial features, and possibly an intellectual disability. Okay, so that's one genetic disorder you could mention if they ask you in the exam. Of a genetic disorder you've studied, name it and give some of the characteristics associated with it. And you'd say, okay, well, it's a third copy of the chromosome and you have slow visual growth. There we go. Another one you might have heard of is cystic fibrosis. So CF, cystic fibrosis. And that's, again, it's genetic. So no amount of broccoli is going to stop you getting cystic fibrosis, but it is passed on in chromosomes. And that usually, a person with cystic fibrosis has an issue with their lungs. Also, there's other things, but generally other organs involved there. But usually cystic fibrosis, you think lungs and problem with the lungs and really, really, really bad cough, lots of hospital time. It's very, very debilitating. And again, that's caused by a mutation. In this case, chromosome 7, where Down syndrome was chromosome 21. So they're two good examples of ones that are inherited. So not as part of your lifestyle, but ones that are inherited and ones that you can do absolutely nothing about. I put in a bit extra about a diet. So obviously, if you think of the main vitamins you might talk about, vitamin C, they might say, of a vitamin, name where it's found and what it does, or what a deficiency in it causes. So first vitamin C, you find it in oranges, and if you don't eat enough vitamin C, you can get a condition called scurvy, and you can look up what scurvy is. High fibre, so a high fibre diet, why you eat brown bread as opposed to white bread, and that stops you from becoming constipated. So all these are just different things you can have in your diet. And constipation over a long period of time can lead to colon cancer. You're always nervous about the salt. You want to keep the salt low. So if you're eating lots and lots of salt, that can mess around with your blood pressure. And if your blood pressure is high over long periods of time, it can lead to things like disease of the heart and stroke. Them bones need calcium. And calcium can be found where so if they ask you about calcium, where do you get it? Well, you get it in dairy. You get it in things like milk and yogurt and cheese and things like that. And it's for your bones. Dairy, so your milk, your cheese, your yogurts, also give you vitamin D. Vitamin D is also always lacking in people in Ireland because we don't get much sunshine. It's raining most of the time. And so another great way of getting vitamin D is from being out in the sun. But then again, if you're out in the sun too much, absorbing your vitamin D, well, that leads to other problems, things like melanoma, skin cancer and stuff like that. But dairy is great for vitamin D. And if you eat foods that are high in saturated fat, animal fats, you get things like, you've heard this word before, I'm sure, cholesterol. And that also leads to things like heart disease, stroke, that kind of thing. Okay? Just in case it's asked, and I didn't mention it before, the recommended amount of exercise per day is 20 to 30 minutes. 20 to 30 minutes of strenuous exercise a day. And we did lots of work on smoking, and we did lots of work on bacteria and fungi, and we did lots of work on virus. I just gave you a couple of my own examples of viruses, bacteria and fungi. I know you gave me some in your list in your homework, but I thought I'd give you a few more to have a quick read. And you can have a read down through that in detail, but really this is the bit that I want to focus to finish off the learning outcome. This is the important part, the inherited and basically what you need to know there is what causes inherited genetic conditions. And you need to know at least one, two preferably. What are the characteristics associated with it? And that will do you if it comes to an exam. The rest is just stuff I've added in about bacteria, fungi, viruses. But you can have a read down through those. They're just the examples that I would use, I typed up for you. Okay? Now, so that's all I want you to do today. I'll come back to that in 1 second, but next week we're moving on to matter. So we're moving on to chemistry, the states of matter. So I've put it in there if you want to start having a read down through it. Now obviously all of these here will be experiments that we'll be doing back in the lab, things that we can't do at the moment. But I've put the notes in there that we're gonna work through next week. But if you want to have a read through them, if you have any time left in the hour, you can go back and have a read through them. But for now, for the rest of today's class, what I want you to do is these questions here. And these are actually up on the OneNote before Christmas, but I put them up very late because I knew this wouldn't be examined in the Christmas exam. So I want you to go through and I want you to try and answer as many of those as you can. There's lots of them. Most of the answers, nearly all of them, are in the notes up the top. And it'll just take you through the kind of exam questions they're asking all around human health. Okay, and as I said, next week we're going to be moving on until we're moving on. So for the next, say, 35-40 minutes, you should be working on these questions here in the human health part of the content library. And then the bit I need to see uploaded to your homework section here on OneNote is this task here, and that is due by Friday. I hope that's okay. As I said yesterday, you guys didn't seem too keen on a live lesson, but that's always a possibility. Doesn't necessarily have to be a lesson. It can just be a questions and answers or a touch base. I'm doing that with a few of the other classes. But if you're happy with the videos, you're happy with the videos. If you're learning this way and you're getting the work up online, which you seem to be doing, I am happy with that also. So you're focused on, in the human health folder, those questions there for the rest of this class. You should have about 35 minutes. And then this, and if you're finished that in time, go back and get your homework done, which is your task here on the screen now. Any questions, of course, just email me or stick a comment up on the Schoology group, and I will get back to you quite quickly. Okay? All right, if I'm not talking to you, have a great weekend, and I will see you next week.